And it was that I was scared, and that fear was, I mean, first off, my wife, who said, no, there's absolutely no way you cannot do Turning Point now. You have to stand up and lead. And she pushed me over the threshold. But the initial reaction came from a place of, that fear came from the unknown. And so when I approached it and I went into it, and I was just like, you know what, full send, it, we're going.
How has your attendance been since the assassination?
So our chapter membership has increased 3x since the beginning. I'm getting emails all the way from West Virginia, mostly threats. It's interesting. It's everything from, they're going to come to campus, kill the students, kill the professors, kill everybody, all the way to just telling me how much of a, white piece of crap I am.
Since Charlie Kirk's assassination, what is going on with Turning Point USA, the organization he spent years building? We're going to find that out, but first subscribe and like our channel. Click that little bell icon for notifications and find the Devil's Advocate podcast on your favorite listening app. Spencer Walker from DU, you obviously are a big fan of the movie Old School with Will Ferrell.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, how can you not be? Especially my age being at the university.
So how old are you?
36.
And you're in college.
Yeah,
You're living my dream. I want to go back there now in my 60s. I miss college.
Yeah, it's interesting to have more to relate to with my professors than the students around me.
What brought you back to school? Were you that stupid that you couldn't do it the first time?
A different path. It was kind of a long, stretched out, story for myself where I started to realize what I was passionate about and where I wanted to be. But being around young students and being able to influence the direction they were going was really where I saw myself.
So you actually built a business, you cashed out of that business, you've done pretty well for yourself, and you're going back to school to improve yourself and get an education. What kind of freak job are you? Why don't you just buy a yacht and get the hell out of Dodge?
Well, I would love to. I mean, my dream would be to get a piece of property, somewhere in Italy and just be able to have my tiny little home on a hill with a bike and a vineyard, some chickens and goats, and just relax. But I still have kids, so we're stuck until they're done.
You can sell them,
We've tried. I still have the receipt. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, we've tried. eBay refused to let the transaction go through, yeah. But it's it's an interesting space. But I mean, being able to pursue education, I think is such a huge opportunity. It's one that I think is wasted, especially with a lot of veterans.
Which you are.
Yeah. No, I spent time in the Marine Corps, and my biggest thing is being able to get to truth, and through that is philosophy, and that is where the foundations of everything are built, so you can reason off of logic and be able to understand the root of things.
Yeah, my job at Independence Institute is that Venn diagram where philosophy and politics meet. And everybody thinks, that their politician is doing the right thing and being driven by some great political credo or philosophy. No, politicians just need to get reelected. That's what keeps them going. So you're back in school, you're getting your doctorate in philosophy. And by the way, once you get that, the job offers just roll in. It's amazing. You're also the head of Turning Point USA for the chapter at DU and pretty much all over the state, aren't you?
I mean,
by default-ish?
Yeah, by default, yeah. It's we're making strides and we're leading the way. So the way that I see it is somebody has to set the example, and given where I'm at and what I'm doing, it fell on me to make sure that I'm doing that. So Charlie Kirk set an example. The founders before him set an example. Somebody needs to be able to carry on that torch, and it's not going to be through, tabling events where you do a pancake breakfast because it was his favorite breakfast. It's going to be actual action that brings unifying principles to the forefront of universities.
Talk to me a little bit about the assassination. It hit everyone really hard, and it was amazing. The people who are the haters, people who hate Charlie Kirk, some of them went crazy. They couldn't help themselves. They basically said, this guy deserves to die. And then they had to back off. Oh, no, even terrible people like Charlie Kirk have a right to speak. It was not a shining moment for the left. Give me your take of one when you found out what happened and just the reaction that you've seen from the ground level on a campus.
Yeah, I mean, my initial reaction was completely denying it. There's no way. And then I was on a flight internationally, and so my wife was the one messaging me on the Wi-Fi. I was working, and she texted me right away, and I was like, "There's no way." And I think my actual response was like, "He'll be fine," because I couldn't accept that would actually be something.
And have you met this guy?
No, I have not. Followed him forever, but it wasn't something that I could accept as being true, especially in America. And then when I started to see the videos, and of course my background, I was able to understand, okay, that is probably not something somebody's going to live through. And there was, of course, a lot of different information. It was he was shot in the chest, and it was the neck. Okay, he's at the hospital.
Once you saw the video, and you've got more experience being active duty military and Marine than I, but a shot like that with the blood loss, that it was immediate, this guy was gone.
Yeah, even if you had a surgical team there right away, I mean, there's nothing anybody can do. I mean, it's 99%, 99.9% that he's gone. And so, I mean, of course, the reactions that you mentioned, internet, globally, there was a lot of really awesome unification that came from it, but there was also some very disgusting reactions. I think anytime somebody is hurt or killed over politics or even just difference of opinion is disgusting. But the thing that really upset me was that you had this principle that he was standing for, not the things that he was saying, but that he was advocating for freedom of speech and dialogue on campus. And that is what a university is. It's a location to bring ideas and have open dialogue. The fact
there's almost a poetic irony that here's a guy who went to college campuses to invite debate.
Yeah.
No matter what you thought about him, the technique that he used was prove me wrong. And let's have an open public debate, just like we used to do in the town square. This is the way, Lincoln and Douglas would fight it out. This is as American as you can get. And campuses, which generations ago were known as bastions for free speech. We will protect your right of free speech. We disagree with what you say, but we will defend to our death your right to say it. And we know that's not the case on college campuses anymore. And it was poetic beauty that the cancel culture on college campuses finally has taken a life.
Yeah. Well, and you've seen it throughout Turning Point. You've seen chapter membership explode, people starting chapters at universities you never would have thought would have had them. I mean, especially in the Ivy League. And it's absolutely astonishing to see something like that happen in lieu of the situation. But the other side of that too is seeing what would traditionally be the left that would, dominate these campuses and shut down open dialogue, stepping up and inviting it. So it's, especially at a campus like University of Denver, where there's been a lot more support than I think what anybody thought we would have had initially.
For Charlie and for Turning Point.
Not so much for Charlie Kirk as the individual, but for Charlie Kirk, the representation of freedom of speech.
Help us understand Turning Point.
Yeah.
I've been around this a long time. I got a pretty good sense. But for somebody who's just tuning in and listening, Turning Point USA is what that wants to get what done?
So every chapter does its own thing. We have our headquarters that is, the embodiment of our mission. So educate, organize, and train students on the principles of...
Organize and train students to do what?
Mainly on the principles of freedom, limited government, and free markets. And so with that, not just getting them to understand we all agree on these things, but then to get that expanded throughout the campus. And so tabling events are a big one where, a student will go set up and then they'll put an idea out there, a prove me wrong type situation.
You call that a tabling event. So somebody puts a table out where people walk by and basically invites dissent.
Yes. However, what my approach is less getting, for me, I don't think there's going to be enough movement trying to get students involved that way. It's more of like, it's our side versus their side. For me, I see it as getting the actual university staff and faculty involved and showcasing, here's the principles that we believe in. They're no different than the principles you believe in. And showing them that we are more unified than we are divided. We might have opinions that stem out of those principles, so like freedom of speech. We might have a difference of opinion, but we both agree that those opinions should be shared.
I think you're nuts, because I don't think we want the same thing anymore. I always used to believe that left and right wanted the same thing, but disagreed on the means. And I'm beginning to wonder, wait a second, but that was when the left was democratic left, not socialistic left, not revolutionary left. And now I get a sense that we might not want the same things at all. We all want a successful private economy? No, these people do not. We want our kids to be educated? No, we want them to be indoctrinated. We want healthcare choice? No, we want the state to make our decisions. I'm wondering if what you're picturing is even true any longer. That we agree on what we want. Convince me that, because I don't believe it.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where the important factor of educate comes into play. So, how many students can you ask? How many senators are there? And they have no idea. And so starting from those points of, okay, you don't really have a basis of understanding our political system, let alone the principles that they're built upon. And so bringing forward just the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and showing them that the Ninth Amendment says that our rights are innumerable. That's what gives us bodily autonomy and privacy laws. These things are not all in the Bill of Rights, but we share on these principles. And so when you look at something as easy as freedom of speech, I don't need to agree with the things that somebody is saying is on a campus specifically, but I need to allow those to be said. And when we are not coming in there confrontational and saying, hey, we're out here with pitchforks and, these things that you're saying are absolutely wrong, I don't think that makes us any better than the people that we criticize.
There was a time when the political left were carrying the torch for free speech. You had the ACLU, Jewish lawyers in the ACLU fighting for neo-Nazis' right to parade and to publicly demonstrate. People who wanted to kill these people. That was so principled. That was so remarkably American. You had people for the American way, working for free speech. There was really a sense that our system works because freedom of speech is not made for the majority, it is made for the minority. That's why we have this. And what I'm seeing now is, I don't like what you say, we'll cancel you. If you say that there are only two sexes or two genders, you know what? We're going to make sure you're fired. You don't take the DEI classes and don't believe this, we're going to make sure you get kicked out of school or you can't make a living. And heaven forbid you piss us off enough, you're the CEO of a large healthcare company, or you're Charlie Kirk and have these ideas I don't like, I will frickin' take your life. This is so very different. And now it seems that largely there are people on the right who are fighting for the right to free speech. This is not where I was when I was a kid. Even at your age, it wasn't where we were.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest things, it's like getting into the black and white issues where people talk about, okay, political violence is all on the left, or, well, no, it's all on the right, and it was always on the right. How about we just agree political violence is bad? And that's where I want to take the conversation, and we can, instead of debating who sucks more, because, especially being involved in conservative politics, it's like I can name more people on the right that I disagree with than I can on the left. And being able to bring those, get rid of the 80-20 issues and just focus on the 80% of things that we agree on, I think is where we're going to actually have our big strides in making a difference.
What are those 80% issues that somebody from Turning Point and somebody who's progressive on a college campus, what are those 80% things that we agree on?
The Bill of Rights, And
Oh, you are so wrong. I don't
no.
think they believe in the Bill of Rights.
So yeah, I get exactly where you're coming from, and when you get into the grit of it, and so I just met with the chair of one of the committees or the executive committee for the Democrat Party in Colorado, and it was a really fascinating conversation on how many things. I always open it up with a challenge of, tell me what you think the most divisive issue is between you and I, and let's see where we disagree and where we agree. And it's always fascinating because they think that these things are going to be very, sex education, for example, in education. They'll bring up these ideas that, well, it needs to be here, it needs to be this, and it needs to be at this time. And it's like, well, then how about we talk about common sense and we say, when are kids going to be most receptive to this information? Is it good information? And then there's also the side of it that's, it gets a little too extreme when you talk about abstinence. And it's like, is that the answer when we know this is not going to happen and we understand what is actually happening? Maybe we need to actually implement better, more, I don't even know the word for it, more common sense.
So were you able to find 80% agreement on things?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%, and probably more than that.
Really?
Yeah.
Things like, I believe individuals have a right to the Second Amendment. I believe that a lot of my opponents don't, that they want to take away the guns I own, what they see as big, black, evil guns, not understanding how a mechanism even works.
Well, that's where what the big divide happens, is a lack of information on one side, and then the other side having more, somebody saying, well, that's a weapon of war. Yes, I see the correlation you're making between the picture of it and seeing images in Afghanistan or whatever, or with the military. But being able to actually tell them, hey, none of this on here makes it any more effective. None of the crime, the bulk of crime with gun violence, is happening from this weapon system.
Also, it's hard to say that, what you see there and this gun, they look the same. Mechanically, they're very different.
Yes.
This is a machine gun that can spray out ammo. This is a single shot gun. Every time you pull the trigger, one bullet goes out.
Exactly.
But, what we're saying is, oh no, if only the anti-gunners understood how these guns work, then they'd be okay. No, that's not the case. Many of them do. I guarantee you Michael Bloomberg, who underwrites Disarming Americans, understands this. So that guy who's got millions and bodyguards to protect him doesn't want other people to have guns to protect themselves. So I don't see that. There are people, or I don't see the 80%. Colorado passed a law punishing misgendering. How in the world can you say, I support that law saying you can't misgender somebody, you have to accept what they think their sex is, and say, but we agree on the Bill of Rights in the First Amendment? No, it can't. So help me, I don't buy what you're saying. There is not 80% agreement.
Well, and see, that's where, when you talk about the left being so progressive and they're advocating for a full, fully exemplifying the Bill of Rights, when they pass things like that, it's not logically consistent. So you can't say we're for freedom of speech and then pass a law that is about, misgendering. Do
you think they know that, or do you think they're just blind to it?
No, I don't think that. I think that there is a willful ignorance in politics.
But if you showed them the Bill of Rights and explained why free speech was a core foundational principle of the American experiment, then are you expecting them to go, oh, Spencer, I get what you're saying. Hey guys, that misgendering law, no, we can't do it. It's again. That's not going to happen. They want what they want, and they want to use the coercive power of government to get you to act the way that I want you to act.
Yeah, no, and I get it.
So I'm still confused. How is it that you're so optimistic that we're going to get 80% of us together when I don't see it?
I think the biggest, so I've yet to have a conversation with somebody that has opposing views and not been able to have common ground. And I think the biggest thing with that is that I don't come in it looking at a fellow American as the enemy. So, I mean, there are things that I disagree with personally. There's things that I have opinions about. And I always have to temper that with what are our foundational principles that are the most important in our republic. And that's where I always try to tailor the conversation. And so when it comes down to, any kind of big divisive issues, I tried to validate and understand while also trying to push back on things that may be taking things too far, and to show them that, and to show them I'm willing to give up territory so that you can come meet me closer where I'm at.
Towards what end? I mean, for instance, I don't want to get into the abortion debate because it's beautifully debatable. If you believe that this is a life, it makes sense. If you believe it's not a life, then you protect the liberty of the mother. All right, I'm there. Both sides, depending on your starting point, are logically consistent. And the Declaration of Independence, which says government's there to protect life and liberty.
Yeah.
Well, if it's not a life, it protects liberty. So you've got this great debate. I don't see a whole lot of middle ground there. I don't see it. On the gun control issue, I don't see the middle ground. On taxation, that you have the right to take other people's property for anything more than the core functions of government, I believe is theft.
Trust me, yeah, we could go down.
I mean, I'll put it this way: if somebody is forced to give up 100% of their earnings to somebody else, we call that slavery. Your efforts, all of it goes to somebody else. So what happens when half of your money is taken and given to somebody else? Is that half slavery? So we're going to have these disagreements, and you keep saying we're going to find common ground. Yeah, there's always a little common ground, but people are being shot.
Yes.
And people are being shot for what they say. People are being shot for their jobs that they do, like being a CEO or even a legislator. I don't see it getting better.
Well, and I think that's one of the biggest issues is, initially there was like a wince moment. Like, my initial instinct was to not do Turning Point. I was the vice president last year. There wasn't a lot going on. And it was, I had stepped up to be the president of the Student Veteran Association. So I was just like, okay, I can go over here. Turning Point's not doing anything. There's nothing going on. After the assassination, it was a pull between, do I stand up for the principles that I believe in and risk, exposing myself and being, potentially being hurt or criticized, ridiculed? Will this affect my academics? But I couldn't just go and advocate for veterans' rights without standing up for the rights we actually fought for. So I think, for me, it's not going to come down to being bullied by fear or anything. I have to continue to push for the rights that I believe in and stay principled to those foundational beliefs.
You said a couple interesting things there. You said, do I fight for these things even though it could affect my academics? What I heard there was the constant cancel fear that people who have free market beliefs feel. This is one of the biggest reasons Trump was elected, was this unspoken frustration of shut up.
Yeah.
You will call that man a woman or you'll lose your job. Shut up. You will go to these DEI courses and understand that you are an oppressor and you are a racist and you are privileged, and shut up. There were two examples where people fought back, both of them anonymous. One was Bud Light, where this poor beer company did nothing wrong but throw a trans guy a couple beers. Who cares? But the frustration over the "you will be quiet" had to bubble up someplace, and the second one was Trump being elected. So you're saying you feel threatened, you feel worried about cancellation as a student, and how to put this politely, you're a friggin' Marine, you've been shot at, you've been in life and death situations, you're 36 years old. If you're scared on a college campus, if you feel intimidated about your personal safety, your future, your academics, for just saying what you believe in, can you imagine what some 18-year-old is who's fresh off the boat coming to college for the first time?
And that is an absolutely excellent point. And it was that I was scared, and that fear was, first off, my wife, who said, no, there's absolutely no way you cannot do Turning Point now. You have to stand up and lead. And she pushed me over the threshold. But the initial reaction came from a place of, that fear came from the unknown. And so when I approached it and I went into it and I was just like, you know what, full send, fuck it, we're going. I started talking to different professors on campus, to different organizations on campus, especially primarily the ones that I thought would be very opposed to us having a presence, and then to the faculty, so the chancellor and the provost. And it's been nothing but the opposite of what I expected. And my conversations with them was the same thing.
Of course it was opposite of what you expected because they assassinated a guy. The provost isn't going to say, Spence, you're a good guy, but no, we can't. No, could you imagine what would happen if the provost said, I'm sorry, but you cannot increase Turning Point activities here on the campus? The backlash would be too much. So, of course, they have to. Do you really think that they're supporting your point of view of limited government and personal and economic freedom? I don't think they are.
Well, what I love is, so like recent example is you had the Jimmy Kimmel and the FCC and all the debacle with that. Everybody who typically is against limited government now started saying, we need limited government. Whatever way they phrased it, that's what they were saying in the end. And so when you bring that up, it's like, for me, free markets get to decide that. If somebody doesn't want to watch the show, they won't, and it'll go away. And they're
by the way,
I agree.
Quick aside.
Yeah.
I think people on the libertarian side of the equation need to stand up and say, how that was handled by the Trump administration is absolutely wrong. You cannot step up and say, because of power of regulation, we've got the FCC, we're going to use that power to manipulate you. And so our opponents are absolutely right on that issue. But where the hell were our opponents when it was Biden putting pressure on Facebook and Meta and Twitter and all the rest, stifling anything that was critical of COVID, and then after January 6th, of course. So, I agree with you, and I will rip on Trump for that, but you guys need to rip on Biden for that, and Obama when he did it. And I hear crickets.
Exactly. Well, and that's the same thing, is none of these people and none of these groups would have expected us to rally next to them and say, no, that's too far. And then they see that, okay, wait, you're talking about limited government, free markets, and we agree with that now, and you're standing side by side with us. It's like, yeah, because it's a principle that we all agree on.
Was that a turning points position that you agreed with the left on the government should not pressure Disney to can?
So not agreeing with the left, it's more that we are focusing again on principles that, free markets, limited government, freedom of speech, these things are important.
Let me ask it differently. So if you ask the traditional Turning Point USA kid, was using the FCC to pressure Disney to can Jimmy Kimmel a good thing or a bad thing? What would the answer be?
I would say with the average Turning Point member, I would say that they would say it was a good thing. Because there's a constant confusion of Turning Point being they have conservative principles, but they think of it as a political organization that's there to, march on the Capitol for Republicans. And it's not. It's a civic organization there to educate on our founding principles.
But you just said opposite, which was Turning Point was standing there with the left, basically saying government shouldn't do that. And then I just heard you say most Turning Point people would say, no, it's good that Trump used his muscles and the power of government to shut a critic up.
No, and trust me, it is a thing that I am trying to change and advocate for, that we focus on the principles and not on politics.
So is Turning Point USA a political organization, a Trump organization, a booster organization for MAGA, or is it a principled organization that cares about free speech and limited government? Because you can't be both.
Oh, I completely agree. And
so which one is it?
So I would say Turning Point HQ, the way it turned, and especially with Charlie Kirk, like, of course, as a 501c3, after an election, you can hand out your MAGA hats. During, you can't. But of course, when you do it the right way, you can get candidates to show up and get things involved and have your tour with specific people, and you can see, okay, it all leans that way. And that's where my issue is you need to have voices from both sides.
All right, I'm not getting an answer.
No, I would say...
So is Turning Point a MAGA supporting organization, or is it a idealistic organization that supports free speech and the other rights we have from the Bill of Rights?
I'd say, to be completely honest, my perspective would be that it's both. It has those principles, but then also it's been twisted, not even twisted, it's been pushed too far to the right. And it's not that it's necessarily bad or good. We have organizations for all kinds of different things, but as a civic-focused organization with conservative values, it has to be completely agnostic from politics.
And college Republicans, they rah-rah for the Republican.
Yeah.
It's right there in the name. Turning Point USA seems to have turned from an ideological organization to educate and give kids on campus a voice and help teach them that they don't have to be canceled, that they don't have to shut up, to something that is much more Team R, Team MAGA, and therefore losing some of its principles. Am I off on that?
No, not at all. I mean, you'll have students who are conservative, and even if they're just slightly right in the middle, and they consider themselves independent or libertarian, they feel like they get shoved into these categories where, okay, I am part of this now, and so now I have to believe all these things and support all these things, even if I'm uncomfortable doing so. And you see it the same on the left. It's like, use Russia as an example. We didn't have any kind of strategic alliance. We didn't make sure that we did things effectively. So of course, and this was previous administration, of course they did things that they thought they could get away with invading Ukraine. If we isolated them and allowed them to create alliances with people we don't like. So if we had actually had strategic alliances with them, they would have saw the disadvantage of aligning themselves with other people and had these flows of trade and exchange of ideas that would have been more beneficial to both sides. And so that's where I want to ensure our chapter at DU stays and encourage other chapters. We're in the middle. We focus on these principles, and that's it. Everything else, make a decision from those. If you think because of these, the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, that you go more that way, that's fine with me. I don't care. I keep inviting more and more people to come to our events, not trying to exclude them and say, well, you think this, so you're not allowed to come.
How has your attendance been since the assassination?
So our chapter membership has increased 3x since the beginning. I've done different interviews with other students on campus that have had the courage to reach out and say, hey, let's have a conversation and they'll open it up with, I am considered far left liberal. And
which is great.
Yeah.
I love it when people say, hey, here's where I am. Now let's have a conversation.
Exactly. And what's so fascinating is every time I've had one of those conversations, like this last one last week, I'm leaving the campus and she runs after me and goes, hey, how do I get involved with Turning Point? And so I see that as a huge win when I can bring other people over who might otherwise disagree. And I just say, those are opinions. They might come from a place of, how you feel about things, or, you have a strong experience with something, and I get why you feel that way. But these foundational principles are what all of those ideas are built off of.
Let me go back to the assassination.
Yeah.
Like the Kennedy assassination, we have the imagery, which makes it so much more palpable. And a picture's worth 1,000 words. That assassination was terrifying to watch. And for most Americans, it brought home violence to see somebody shot in the neck and bleed out and die in front of a huge crowd. It reminds me a bit of when JFK was shot before my time, but we relive that image. I wonder if it's a fair analogy to say that the Charlie Kirk assassination in 2025 has shadows of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. He was a guy who's controversial, who is hated by a great swath of Americans if they know who he is, for all sorts of reasons, who said, I want to debate these issues. One case it was civil rights for African Americans. The other one was free speech on college campuses. And they were killed for that. They were killed for their beliefs. And what comes after will be interesting. MLK was lifted to sainthood. You cannot say anything bad about MLK. You name schools and streets and airports and boulevards. I don't see the same for Charlie Kirk.
Well, again, back to
First of all, is it a fair analogy? And go ahead 20 years. Will Charlie Kirk be MLK getting his own his own federal holiday. I
mean,
don't see it.
Yeah, it's hard to predict what would happen in the future. I mean, I think history will tell. Ultimately, I believe this will be an event that shapes the direction of our history in a positive way. But the biggest thing that I don't want to see happen is that people continue to isolate themselves and stay in their groups. And I feel like, God, Nextdoor or Facebook or any of the comment sections where people will say, I was the only one, the No Kings protest, right, that happened here recently. Each side telling their details about how they feel about it. I don't care. The only thing I said in there was so amazing to see Americans exercising their First Amendment right. Of course, I got hate on that comment.
From whom?
The first one was from the right. It was, they're beyond talking. We're past that point. And it's like, no, we're not. And that is the scary part of any of this. No, we're not beyond speaking, and we need to move back that way, not move further away. This is not a call to action to go grab arms and, we're doing this. So many people who say, on the left it's the revolution, on the right it's the Civil War. And it's like, shut up. First off, none of them understand any of this, what that would be as a cost. But then to look at a family and the first thing you see is their political leaning instead of seeing the value of that life is, to me,
there is a difference. When Bernie Sanders and AOC were here, all the old hippies came out. Yeah. And someone said, oh, look, it's a John Tesh concert. Everybody goes, oh, that's nice. Yeah, socialism is good. That's different than the Rodney King riots, where people are throwing bricks and knocking down statues and robbing and looting and graffitiing and destroying. I don't know how far off we are from that again, but there is an element on both sides. There's one side that wants the Civil War. All right, it's time to finish this question. And there's other that want a revolution for the workers party. We know what's right. We're going
the baristas at Starbucks need to unionize. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And so they want violence. There's a swath in the middle, but I worry after we've normalized some of this violence, it feels very 1960s civil unrest. And I think people are concerned. And I think it's wonderful. We got to find common ground. We got to learn how to speak, all the rest. But also, I don't want to be Pollyanna-ish about this.
Well, trust me, I would be, it doesn't matter which side it is. If I saw a group expressing their First Amendment rights on campus, regardless of how much I feel either way for it, if somebody was trying to harm them because of what they're doing, I'd be the first person to stand up for it.
Yep.
I think we need more people like that. And that's what I'm trying to set the example for and to create on our campus.
People want to learn more about your chapter, Turning Point, and or Turning Point. Where do they go?
So if they just search TPUSA Denver, they'll find it. I don't know how I'm getting emails all the way from West Virginia, mostly threats.
Tell me, threats like what? Listen, I get them too. And they're disconcerting, particularly after the assassination.
So it's interesting. It's everything from, they're going to come to campus, kill the students, kill the professors, kill everybody, all the way to just telling me how much of a, white piece of crap I am, which is, it's stemming from, they don't know me, they don't know who I am. It's stemming from an ideology that says we are evil, and it's a rhetoric that's been said. It's like, if the right is Nazis, then of course that is horrible. And my belief on the left, if I think that all people on the right are Nazis, I have to go extinguish that. So I get where it's coming from. It's not right, but with the threats that are violent, I don't respond. But with other ones where they reach, they say something dumb, and it's like, well, hey, here's my email, here's my phone number, let's have a conversation.
How many of them give you a call?
I had one that gave me a call, and he was very interesting, to say the least. It was more of and I've seen it on both sides. It was more of one of those ones where it's like, okay, I just got to listen, and then, once this conversation's done, it's,
Please. Yeah. All right, time to go. So, a couple quick things. Get tired of being called a racist?
I
Because
mean,
when you believe in limited government, you are de facto a racist. I don't know how that is, but I've been doing this work for 3.5 decades. And being called a racist is just, I disagree with you, you're a Nazi. Which is so wild because it is the left now that is pushing a Palestinian cause where they want to execute the Jews. So how am I the Nazi in this equation? I haven't quite figured this out.
which is so interesting because as one of the examples I gave to the chancellor was if there was a group outside right now protesting, Gaza, that I would encourage my chapters and their officers to go out there and ensure that their right to protest is protected. If they see that and they understand, like the first thing is gonna be like, why the hell are you here? And when you have that conversation, you say, because I believe in your right to the First Amendment, it changes the entire conversation. They're like, wait, what? And then what you have happen is when we do our event, they're not gonna say, hey, we need to rally together and go do that. They'll think about the time that we showed up and they'll say, no.
Maybe.
There's always some crazies on all sides.
Right, on all sides. But again, there's a side over there that passed misgendering laws. There are people there who will cancel you for the words you use. They cannot, by definition, they are not First Amendment supporters. They are not the same as liberals of the past.
And that's it. That's what I'm seeing.
And they're not being called to account
Yeah.
by the liberals today. You know why? Because good old-fashioned liberals, Democrats, and I know them, are scared to fucking death of being canceled or shot by their allies on the far left. They are hiding, and they know it's gone too far. And the goals that they fought for in previous generations are being ripped from them, but they're scared of being called a racist because in that world, there is nothing worse.
Well, and what is the typical response? If you have a group coming out on the left that's going to protest something, you then have the counter protesters on the other side of the street wearing all their MAGA stuff.
Right.
You never have a group that comes out and says, we're going to be on their side and we're going to make sure they're safe and fine and that we don't support the message, but we support the principle. That doesn't happen. And so I want to be that change that happens. I want people to understand, the miracle that I always talk about with our chapter is that a Pride Day event happens, whether you agree or disagree, we're going to go there and make sure that it happens. We're going to go there and stand up.
By the way, largely I agree with the Pride.
Yeah, it's not about, I want them to see.
I believe in marriage equality. Put me down.
It's not left or right. It's not religion. It's not anything. It's these principles. That is it. You want to have a conversation outside of that? Good. That's not us. And so that's all I want to focus on and make sure that we demonstrate through action, not through words. And so it's one thing, all day long to be like, you have the right to do that. Cool. Go show up. And, let them know that you agree with their right to do that and tell them, well, I'm actually politically on the other side. No one's doing that. You'll show up and you'll say, I'm going to prove you wrong. No, I'd rather have a sign on campus that says freedom of speech is for all, prove me wrong. And start the conversation there based on that.
I think what you're doing is incredible. Did your wife ever worry for your safety?
Yes, but she also understands my background and
Listen, you might be a great Marine. That doesn't mean a sniper from a roof can't take you out.
We have a good relationship with campus safety and the Denver Police Department and with all our local law enforcement. I'm less worried about something happening to me and more worried about what could happen to our nation. I never thought that I would make it back from Afghanistan in 2010, which was the deadliest year of Afghanistan. And so every single year that I've had after that, I'm like, sweet, bonus. And so I want to do something with that borrowed time.
I think what you're doing is incredible. I appreciate you taking what could be luxurious time, sitting around doing nothing for the rest of your life, and improving your own knowledge by going and educating, getting educated at DU, but more importantly, challenging people. So I want to thank you for doing that. Yes.
I appreciate it.
You stupid SOB, I can't imagine it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
By the way, thanks for being the Marine.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Think freedom.
If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.